All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on the podcast. We have a special guest this episode. It is Amy Farina. What is going on? How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this podcast. I've been listening to yours for a while and you came on mine. So I'm happy that we finally got to do this.
I know it's been a long time coming. I was gonna say we did yours, you had me on yours about maybe a year ago, I would think. It was definitely a different time. I wasn't doing this podcast as much, and we talked about having you on when I revamped it, and here we are. We're revamping it. Things are moving again. So happy to have you on. Glad we could do this. You've had a full day. You're 6 hours ahead of me, so that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy to think with these conversations that you can have them on the other side of the world. Also on my podcast, I have guests that are in Asia or, on the East Coast, West Coast of the US. And it's funny to see where people are at in their days. Some people just starting their days, other people it's the middle. Then I think when I had you on my podcast, it was like late in the night for me. And I was like talking really loud and I was worried about my neighbors. And then now it's like, it's your morning and it's around 5 p.m. for me here.
It is crazy that we can connect though over one thing, which is our love for music. And specifically, we both like EDM music, but just like the love for music is something I think that's so intrinsic to like human nature. Like we all have this love for music. Doesn't mean we're all like the same things, but we all love music.
Yeah, music transcends everything. I mean, it knows no boundaries, knows no borders. It transcends socioeconomic status, culture, race, gender, sexual orientation, distance. Like you could be in Florida, I could be in the Netherlands, we could be whatever, and we could still, like the same. We could still like music, especially electronic music. I've noticed that as well. Just people that I've met from all over the world, whether it's at Miami Music Week or Amsterdam Dance Event, or from my travels, and it's like people out in Ukraine or in Thailand or whatever, like just all over. It's like, oh, you like electronic music too? Yeah, me too. And you immediately have that connection. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. You've been all over for music stuff. I mean, I see you all over Europe. You've come to the States a few times. We almost were able to connect in Florida, like you said, Miami Music Week. That's like super close to me. It's crazy that one, we connected with this music, and then two, what this music allows us to do. I mean, there's other artists and other genres that do like world tours and stuff of that nature, but and maybe it's me not being aware, but like I don't know of anyone that's traveling, to go to rap concerts or hip hop and stuff of that. I just don't. But for EDM, man, it is like a whole nother world where people are traveling all over for it.
Yeah, especially for certain events. Like Tomorrowland did a whole documentary about it. I think it was on Netflix. It was like, I think it was called People of Tomorrow, and it was people from all over, and like people coming all the way from Africa, like just for Tomorrowland, all the way in Belgium. And what's funny about Tomorrowland is it is in this very small town called Boom in Belgium, and you just think people coming from all corners of the world packing up their bags and to go to this music festival. It's crazy, but we're doing it. So
it is nuts. The Netherlands is like known for their festivals too. Like it's like one of your guys' big tourist things. Obviously you have Amsterdam and stuff like that, but like it's a big thing for the Netherlands. Like I'm wondering, this is kind of off topic, but I wonder, was like COVID different for you guys in a sense of like you didn't have the festivals that normally bring in the tourists or even just the music in general? Was that something that was weird at that time? I know that was like 2 or 3 years ago, but
yeah, well, actually, for us, it was pretty recent. So we just
oh my
opened
God,
up
that's
in
right. It's so different. It's so different.
yeah,
I'm
so
so
I can
sorry.
speak a little bit about COVID, especially because first things for people who don't know, I am American. I mean, you could hear from my accent, I'm like very American. Moved to the Netherlands 6 years ago, so I can provide kind of a perspective of an American living in the Netherlands in all aspects. But when it comes to Corona, we were closed for 2 years. We were closed. I think I remember like the exact dates, but March 2020 until February 2022. There were periods where we were open for a bit, closed for a bit, but pretty much in lockdown for 2 years. And it had a tremendous impact on obviously the world, the economy, but especially the electronic music community. I mean, there was a ton of money was lost. A lot of people stuck at home. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people had to pivot what they were doing or retrain or get a job somewhere else. And it's an extremely difficult time. And yeah, I actually wrote an article about it in Hardstyle Mag. We'll probably get to that later, but I did write an article about the impact of COVID on the electronic dance music industry globally. And I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it was, let's just say it had a horrible, horrible impact on the scene here. And I think we are still trying to build from that. And now everything's really expensive because of that, because you're trying to make the money back from that lost time. And then on top of that, you have global inflation. So it's an interesting time here in the Netherlands for electronic music.
Yeah, I would say that's something I've noticed recently is here in the States as well, is that the prices of festivals has gotten significantly more expensive. And I've heard there's some back end things, same thing, like they're trying to make their money back and stuff of that nature. And but it is interesting. And and same thing, we have the inflation here. It's we're all connected in this global system and it affects us all. But something I'm curious about is I wonder if they're gonna lower the price. You know what I mean? Like once they get to a certain price and people are still paying, I feel like they're never gonna lower it. Like we'll never get those days of $200 festivals, really.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I think if people will continue to pay those prices, and clearly they will if these festivals sell out
Clearly they
every
will.
year. So if they're let's, I don't want to name a specific festival, but let's just say one festival's it was 500 for a ticket for a full weekend, 2 years ago, and now it's 700, and people are paying for it, and it's still selling out. Why not make it 750 next year? I mean, as much as we love this
She
scene,
just like put it up more.
yeah, just put more. I mean, from a business perspective, okay, so first things first, like we love electronic music. It's all about peace, love, unity, and respect, but we can't forget that it's also a business and they also need to make money. So I get that point. We can sit here and complain about the prices. I do too, but I also complain about the prices at the supermarket. So everything is just, we can just complain about everything, I think.
I agree. I feel like we wouldn't complain if our salaries went up with it, but that is another discussion.
Yeah,
We could have an entire podcast on that alone, but we won't do that today. We won't do that today. We'll
yeah,
get
I feel like
into
I'm not qualified to talk about that kind of stuff. I did take some econ courses in college, but I wouldn't feel qualified to talk about like global economics on a podcast.
but
I have
isn't
knowledge of a lot of things, but not that.
but isn't that the fun in talking about it? Like we don't know what we're talking about, but we
That's
have
true.
ideas.
That's true. You do have a lot of ideas in your podcast. I was listening to your one about Chat GBT and AI and how we're all like, yeah, I'm like, wow, like you go really deep. Like you're a funny, goofy guy, but then sometimes the things that you say, I'm like, whoa, that's like really profound. It's really deep.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's part of why I started this podcast was just to talk and talk about things I like and I'm intrigued in. And sometimes it's like you say, sometimes it's funny, goofy stuff of like why doesn't a girl buy me a drink at the bar?
Oh yeah, I
And
saw
then
that.
and then and then other times it's like AI is gonna take my job. Like I shouldn't even be here right now. Like it could go either way. Yeah, and then obviously like we've talked about the love for music. I mean that's the whole reason I got into all this stuff is music started it all, and that's still very profound in there. And I mean who doesn't love music? But to the extent I think I have friends of mine that they like music and they listen to it. That's it. They don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. I'm like a music junkie. I'm like I have to go to the event. I need to go. Like that's what I would say. I'm a music junkie. Yeah. And not just EDM. I don't know. I don't know. Do you listen to anything else besides electronic or do you just do
No,
electronic?
not really. It's actually funny you asked me that because it's been my entire life actually since I was a little kid. I remember one of the first, so I'm 32, so I think everyone knows what a CD is, but in the 90s I got yeah, not to age myself, but in the 90s one of my first CDs was like this Mickey Mouse House remix CD, and it was like, Under the Sea and like Disney songs like dancing. And from there I was really into Aqua and the Venga Boys and Scooter. Like I've always been passionate about dance music. I'll listen here and there to reggaeton or hip hop or I know random pop on the radio occasionally, but no, like ever since I was a little girl, it's just been dance music.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I wish I could say the same. I'm not the same. I wish I'm like a newbie. I started in like 2017, dove headfirst in the scene. I had listened, it was like the opposite for me. I had listened and I would hear electronics songs here and there. and I would like them a lot, and I would go, this is cool. Boom, that was it. Move on, back to hip hop, back to country. I used to be really big into country. That's a funny story. But it's a totally different vibe, like totally different genre. And I used to be just as into that as I am in EDM, like going to
Wow,
concerts,
that's
going to fest.
shocking.
I went to my first, technically my first festival was a country festival.
But you're
Country
from the
music.
South, right? You're from Florida originally.
I am from technically South, yes, Florida.
That's the
Florida is
South.
such a okay, but well, it is, it isn't. And this is why I'll say this, because I've lived in the South. There's a big difference. There's a
That's
big
true.
difference.
That's true. There's a difference.
Florida is like this weird, okay, everyone else looks at the United States as like this weird like place where like all these different things come together and everyone's got this and they're culturally fighting. Then you have Florida, and the rest of the United States looks at Florida that way. We are that of the United States. They look at us, and they're like, that is crazy down there.
A Florida
So
man.
Florida man, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. The universal what is that? Internet sensation of Florida man. But yeah, Florida is like this weird state where the farther south you go, the more north you get. Except in Miami. Miami then goes like Hispanic, and that's its own. Miami is its own. Miami again could be its own world in Florida, in the United
Mhm.
States. Like, yeah, but like where I'm from in Florida, it's very like Midwestern, and then like the East Coast is very Northeastern, and then when you get to like the Panhandle of Florida, which is, I don't know if people know where that is. I don't have someone here to Google it and show it on a map, but like the Panhandle, where like maybe like Tallahassee is, Destin, Panama City Beach, it's like that's where it gets southern and country. That's like lower Alabama, basically.
Yeah,
So it's
that's really true. My parents have a place in Hillsborough Beach. It's near Pompano. Like it's
yeah.
over by there. Yeah, and it's mostly people from the Northeast who have moved down there. So, but I don't know. I always had this thing. I went to college in Washington D.C. and I was like, I'm going to school in the South, and everyone's like, that's not the South. Like that's the mid. I'm originally from New York and lived in Connecticut. Like, and I'm a Northeast
Oh
girl,
yeah.
and I think like everything below
Everything
like
below you South.
everything like below Connecticut is like that's the South. No, but well, I'm kind of joking, kind of half joking, but I do remember saying like I'm going to school in the South, and they're like DC is not the South.
But I get what you like. I get what you mean, because like
Yeah.
everything below you is technically the South.
So
Like,
and like there's
but yeah,
influences and things like that. But no, Florida, you're 100% right. I agree with you. Like it really depends where you are. It's totally different depending where you are, for
yeah.
sure.
And I lived in the South. I lived in South Carolina for
Mhm.
the last 2 years up until last November, and that is like entirely we have the same things, but like it is an entirely different culture. Like it's very like how do I, like churchy, girls dress nice, they're all like they all want to get married young and they want to have kids, and like this
Eating
it's very, they're
grits,
eating
and yeah.
grits. The craziest thing is gonna be funny, it's making me sound like an alcoholic, but I'm not. The first thing that's crazy about the South is the Bible Belt has certain liquor laws and rules that are different than anywhere else in the States. I didn't know that. So I move up there, and we me and my friends up there wanted to go out, and I was like, okay, I'll pick us up, a bottle to pregame with. And I go to the liquor store at 7:30 at night PM, and it's closed. And I'm like, the fuck? All right. And so I drive, go to the next one, closed. I'm like, what the heck? Go to the next one. Next one's closed. Then I'm like, what is going on here? Because in Florida, they're open until like 1 a.m. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't, like you can go as late as like at 2, they cut you off. Like you can't buy any more bottles at 2. So yeah, turns out they have a law that all liquor stores have to close at 7 p.m. No liquor sales after 7 p.m. and no selling liquor on Sundays. So
Oh,
you
that's
have
rough.
to, right. So you like at Saturday during the day is like prime time, because no one's going, after work. You get off at work at 5, you drive home, it's 6 o'clock. You don't have time to go to the gym. I mean, to go to the
Yeah.
liquor store. But it's just, anyways, that was just a law that I was like, this is so different than where I'm from. Like, I'm not used to that. So South is definitely a little different. But anyways, I digress. I'm curious. I'm gonna pivot here a little bit. Speaking of moving around with my story, what what made you want to move to the Netherlands? I mean, that's a pretty big leap to leave the States and head to the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when I was in law school, I had the opportunity to study abroad in the Netherlands. So, a lot of people don't know this, but The Hague in the Netherlands is home to a lot of the international courts and international tribunals. And at the time, I was looking to pursue a career in international law. So, I got the opportunity in between my first year of law school and second year of law school to come here. And within being here for just a few hours, I was like, I'm moving here. I love it here. This is the place for me. I always had a feeling that I would be living abroad. I'd be living in Europe. The first time I went to Europe, I was about 15 years old, and I was in Italy, I was in Capri, and I remember saying to my dad, like, why do we live in Connecticut? Why don't we live here? Like, this place is so much better. It's so nice, beautiful. And yeah, so I think it was instilled in me from a young age that I had this lust for living abroad, that I wanted to live abroad. And then I had the opportunity to study abroad here, and then decided to move out here after I graduated law school in 2016, and I've been here since.
Was that difficult to come to, or was it just like easy? Like you didn't think about like friends and family? Just curious on that.
I'm an overthinker, so I overthink everything. I did, a lot of thought
Yeah.
did go into the decision, but I felt 100% sure that this was the right decision for me. I did get pushback from people, obviously. Obviously people want, people who love me want me to stay close. They obviously support my decision to go abroad and pursue my dreams and to do that. But at the same time, too, of course, they'll miss me, and I do miss my family and friends in the U.S. I was talking to my parents earlier today, and of course, I miss my family and my friends. I am lucky though. Now I am back and forth a lot, but it wasn't like that when I first moved out here. I was only seeing them maybe once a year. It's only recently that I started working for an American company and also doing all the stuff with electronic music, with writing, that now I'm back and forth more. But yeah, on the one hand, it was an easy decision, but then on the other, I did have to, you do sacrifice when you leave your home.
No, 100%. I mean, I was just curious because I went through like a similar thing. Obviously, it wasn't going abroad, but like I moved 8.5 hours away from home, and friends and family were questioning it. Like, "Well, are you really going to do that?" And I had it's funny because you don't think of it when you do it, but it's it's a big step, and then two, you don't realize like most people until you do it, you don't realize most people don't ever do that. Like they don't move within 45 minutes, of like where they grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big like people look at like what you did and what I mean yours is way crazier in a good way, by the way. But like for me, I had friends that were like, I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, I would never move 8 hours away. And I'm like, in my head, I was like, what? It's just like you gotta go experience new things. And it's just, yeah, it's just funny to think like, because my mind never thought like with you, I was the same way. I never thought about like I did think about it, but I was like, I want to go move away for a bit. And I wanted to do that. I always wanted to do that at some point. And so it was just like yeah, I'm gonna take whatever opportunity I can get. And I remember distinctly one of my like really good friends who has always said he wanted to move away. And I was, and I remember him going, like, came up to visit me and he was like, dude, this is crazy that you live here right now. Like, what do you think about this? And he was like, and then they were talking, and he was like, yeah, honestly, like, as I've been living at home more and more, I like don't think I could do what you're doing. And I was like, I'm like, my jaw dropped. I was like, the kid I thought would move before me is like, yeah, giving me props and stuff. And it's just a whole different mentality. And I think people really they really look up to that because I think deep down they all actually really want to do that, but they're like really scared to do that, you know?
It's a huge risk to move anywhere, and then especially abroad. You have to prepare a lot. You can't, like, I think a lot of people don't realize how much time goes into it too. Like you can't just like hop on a plane with a backpack and like start a new life somewhere. Like there's obviously laws, there's immigration laws, there's, what are you going to do with all your stuff? Where are you going to live? Where are you going to work? Are you able to work? Do you speak the language? I mean, I'm not a spontaneous person. I'm like the opposite of whatever the opposite of spontaneous is. So
Structured.
yeah, very, very structured and organized. So Yeah, I think a lot goes into it. And I think, yeah, a lot of people in the US just decide to stay where they're at. A lot of my friends as well, like maybe, growing up in Connecticut, they moved to New York City, or they moved, they went to California for college, and then they came back to the East Coast. And that's kind of common. Like you go away for college and then you kind of come back to where you're from. Maybe not the same town or the same state, but the same region. I think that's common. At least I've seen that with a lot of people I grew up with.
With so you said you grew up in Connecticut, correct?
Yep.
So with growing up in Connecticut, was it like a did people dream about like living in New York City? Like, was that like one of the things, like, oh, I want to be in a big city? Was that kind of one
Yep.
of the things?
Yeah, 100%. So I grew up in New Canaan, Connecticut, which is 45 minutes outside of Manhattan. So everybody who lived there, like, commuted. The only reason why people live there, actually, I shouldn't say the only reason. There's probably a lot of reasons why people live there, but I'm always like saying negative things about this town, and I don't want to do that. So I'm grateful for growing up there. Sorry, but
Backtracking a little bit.
backtrack a little. Yeah, let me rephrase what I meant to say. So it's a commuter town. So the majority of people who live there because, it's a good school system. You get all the benefits of New York City without living in New York City. And a 45-minute train ride for Americans. I know people in the Netherlands here are like, oh, it's so far. But for Americans, 45 minutes is nothing. It's like, out the door and easy commute.
I agree with that. Have you ever had like a long commute?
Yes. Oh, yeah. But I had here in the Netherlands when I first moved here, I had like a 2-hour commute to work for this internship that I had. And like I've had long commutes also in the US too. I've had like hour and a half long commutes, especially in DC when I had, internships or jobs. And I was like in one corner of it. Yeah, I've had long commutes. And now I work from home and I don't want to go anywhere. My commute is just from my bedroom to my at-home office.
You just hit on a great topic. I've had horrible commutes. I've had like an hour and a half drives to go to
Ooh.
my jobs, and I had to be there at 7 a.m. So you have to wake up at like 5 a.m. to go.
Ugh.
And then by 3, when you leave, you're just exhausted. Like you're just like, I've been up since 5. And I remember doing those, and yeah, same thing. And then once I got to work from home, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I will
Yep.
take a pay cut to work from home. I remember saying that. And one of the worst things about my previous job was that they started me working from home because it was like during COVID, end of COVID, whatever. Like 4 months in, things are going great. And they're like, hey, we need you to come back to the office. I'm like, excuse me. I'm
You're
not
like,
even in, I,
no.
I'm not even in the same state right now. What are you talking about?
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, I love traveling like that. But yeah, I remember being like, okay, and they're like, only 3 days a week, like we're gonna just do a hybrid and blah blah blah, and like
Ugh.
even the exactly. Yeah.
That's my response. Like, oh, 3 days a week is more than half the week. There's only 5 like normal working. Depending, I don't know what kind of job it was, but if you're looking at a normal working week, 5 days, that's more than half.
even, even that, I was like, I cannot do 3 days a week.
No,
It
maybe
was
a
just
half, one half of a day.
literally, I was like, there would be days where I was like, I'd get up out of bed, and especially because you can work from home, right? Like you've already done it for 4 months, so like they like come back in,
Yeah, you're like,
and there'd be
why? Yeah.
it's just, why are we doing this?
Don't do this to me. Yeah, I feel exactly the same. But the way I kind of look at it now is like you're wasting time when you're commuting. Like that's time you're not getting paid for. Even if they do give you money back for the kilometers, miles, whatever, for the gas, or they pay for your train ticket, like you're still not getting paid for that time that you're like in the train or in the car. Like so that adds 2 more hours to your day. So when I used to do a lot of freelance jobs, I would look at my hourly rate and be like, wow, I'm making this money. But it's like, no, you're not, because you have to subtract like the 2 hours, 2.5 hours that you spend commuting. And it's like, well, actually now I don't make that much money. And you can get stuff done. You can't get much done in the car. Obviously, safety first. You need to drive.
No, not at all. I remember thinking to myself, because that's when I like had first started all this stuff, and I was doing the podcast, and I'm like, I might just have to have like a car like talk segment where like I record myself just talking and driving for like
People
one
do that.
episode, a week, because this is like unsustainable. Like coming, like working, driving an hour and a half, working 8 hours, driving an hour and a half, and then coming to like do stuff like this was like, I was like, I'm so exhausted by the end of the day. Like it by the time the weekend rolls around, all I want to do is just sleep. like for
Yeah.
12 hours. Yeah, it's just
And
it's
also when you commute, there's so many things that can happen. There's traffic. So first of all, with driving, there's traffic. Like you never know if there's a road's going to be closed construction. Then if you're taking public transit, like when I was in DC, the metro caught on fire. It's actually, I don't know, like the metro was always like on fire. This was like between 2009 and 2013. Like for some reason, there was like always something. Or there's delays, or like you miss your one connect. A lot of times I'd have like connections. So like you take the tram, whatever, the tram, the train, metro, depending where you're at. So you have multiple transfers. You miss that one stop, one transfer, you have to wait 30 minutes. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong. And when you work from home, there's nothing that's gonna like you're gonna make it to you're gonna make it to your desk, to your computer, because you're already there.
it's funny because you know what? Speaking of like connectors, airlines. Why do airlines sometimes give you like a 20 to 30-minute window? Like, what
Oh
are
God.
they thinking? Then they
I
gotta
had
hold the
that.
plane, and then the worst part is like that. Like you land and they're like your plane that you're on, right? The plan lanes. And then they're like, passenger Amy Farina, if you need to make your connecting flight, we'll let you run off the plane first.
My
So then
God.
everyone looks back and you're like in row 30 and you're like, I'm coming. And you
And I
run
have
off.
so much stuff always too.
Right.
Like I'm the bitch with all the bags, like
Right.
getting
And
into
then
people.
so you run off. Then you have to run through the airport. And then you get to your plane 5 minutes late. And they're like, last call for Amy Farina. And then you're like, I just got off my connecting. And then you give them the ticket, and then you run down the thing. What's it called? I don't know. But you
The
run down
aisle.
it,
The
the
aisle.
aisle,
Mhm.
and then you get into the plane, and now everyone's waiting for you, and they all look at you like, "Oh, you're late. We're waiting for you." And you're like, "I was on a plane not 10 minutes ago."
And then there's no space in the overhead for all my stuff. And then I have to like
Your
get into
bags
the
go
aisle.
underneath. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a mess, and they do it on purpose. Also, planes with their this is like totally off topic to what we'll get to stuff, but
No,
like
don't worry about it.
planes, it's ridiculous the way they board and the way they board is absurd. It should be back to front, and then when the time comes when we land, it should be front to back instead of this like, oh, zone 1 and zone 2, and then you get to zone 1 and you walk in and you're like seat 25 on the aisle, and then two people have to come, and it's like the worst process in the world. They are so disorganized. It's
I
insane.
wonder why.
Because corporate companies are dumb.
Yeah, I've wondered that as well. I fly a lot, I travel a lot, and it's just like the boarding process sometimes makes no sense, and the layover process as well. I actually just experienced that coming back from Florida from Ultra. I was supposed to go from Fort Lauderdale to New York to Amsterdam to Schiphol Airport, but I wasn't, the flight got delayed and I wasn't going to make my connecting flight. So they sent me to Detroit. So I went from Fort Lauderdale to Detroit to Amsterdam. And it's like, oh, why?
Yeah, I've had some weird ones. I had one where I think it was like I was going to, I think Texas or Vegas, I mean, out west, right? And it like they had me fly to DC, like from South Carolina. So I was going like backwards and then forward.
It's
And
so
and
weird.
yeah, I've had some weird ones. I mean, I've had yeah, I mean, I'm not, first off, I will say with that, I'm not gonna sit and do that job. So I guess whoever has it, that makes sense that they might do something crazy. Oh my God. One of the funny things about flights too with do you ever use like Google Flights, or what do you use to book flights?
Yeah. So yeah, Google Flights, like Skyscanner, Kayak, Expedia, like all those kind of. Yeah, I usually start with Google.
Skyscanner used to be the shit.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, I haven't really used it recently. I've just been like Googling flights and then seeing, but then it's like when you're searching, what I learned is like now when you're searching, you have to be prepared to book it in that moment, because then you go to search for it again and it's going to go up. So you have to just, when you're ready to book, like you need to make a decision. That's one tip I've learned recently.
Or use a different IP, like if you're looking
Hmm.
on your phone, use the phone, but then when you go to look, use your laptop or something of that nature. Like I have my, I don't know, I have my phone and I have a work phone, and I usually look at my work phone first, and then I'll figure from there if I want to buy it or not. But yeah, you gotta like switch it around so you can't
Yeah.
track it. But
So they know you're looking. Yeah.
right, yeah. They're like prices are low right now, and then you look like the next day and it's like prices are high. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
I just was here yesterday. Yeah, I
Yep.
hate that. I also heard Tuesdays. Saw a thing online about like for some reason like Tuesday
Hmm.
evenings. There's usually cheaper flights, and I've done that a few times. I've gotten some crazy deals on like a Tuesday afternoon. I remember when I was going to Thunderdome, I like told all my friends like I'm not coming. Flights are $500, tickets 150. I'm not coming. Sorry. And then like the week and a half before, I was like, let me just check Tuesday morning. Like, what? Just for funsies. And for some reason, the flight to Seattle was like 150 plus tax. That's unheard of. Like to go out west,
Wow. Yeah, you got really lucky then.
I booked it and I was like, I'll hope I can get time off on Friday. I just booked it and it was like, I'll find a ticket, whatever. And I just booked it and sent it a week later. But like, it was like, yeah, it was like nuts. I called them. I was like,
Crazy.
I was like, can I still come? I got a flight for 150. Like,
That's really really cheap. Yeah, that's a good deal. If you find deals like that, you just have to jump on them. You can't think about it. You can't hesitate. If you find something like that, you just gotta go. Then it's a sign from the universe you were meant to be there.
exactly, 100%. I wish that I had more friends that would be down to do like weekend small trips versus like going out. Like I feel like a lot of my friends are like, let's go out, which I like doing that too here and there. No harm, no foul there. And I'm not knocking it for people that do it, but like it'd be so much fun once a month to be like looking at flights and be like, boys or ladies, group
Like
guys, I just found a flight for $200 to XYZ place. Let's go for the weekend. And like, boom, just go.
yeah, I think it's like looking at long term and short term, like fun, like in the short term, it's like, well, tonight's Saturday night, right? Like, do you want to go see I want to go see the Mario movie. I want to see Ant-Man. I want to see all these movies. But like, okay, every time I go to the movies, it's like 50 euros, which is $48. I don't know, it's about the same, right? And it's like that's on me because I eat so much, like eating snacks and like drinking in the movie theater. But that money I can save it for this summer in Croatia and go out to eat for 50 euros or $50, whatever. Like it's just thinking like, what do you want short term or long term? Do you want to go out tonight to like the local bar and spend $50, or do you want to save that $50 and use it for your trip to Seattle or or Croatia or wherever you're going?
Yeah, 100%. So with you being in Europe and the Netherlands, where have you visited? What have you visited? What have you seen?
A lot, a lot. I've traveled in Europe before I moved here as well, but since I've moved here, I've been to Germany a couple times. I'm actually going to be in Germany again two more times this summer. Well, once in May and then once in June. I've been to Croatia, I've been to Belgium, I've been to Spain, Italy, Switzerland. I was in Greece before I came here, before I moved here. There's more now. Just blanking on places that I've been. I'm trying to think if there is any. Those are the main places. If I think of anything else, I'll just shout it out. But I think those are the main. And I've also traveled a lot throughout the Netherlands too.
So what is one place, what's your favorite place out of everywhere you've been in Europe?
Oh, that's a great question. Um,
How
hmm.
about let's make it easier.
Yeah, it's a hard question.
Your favorite country you visit in Europe.
Ooh. Yeah, of course, other than the Netherlands. There's something really special about Italy. Actually haven't been. I've been to Italy three times, but before I even moved here. But I think there's something really special about Italy. I think I have to say Italy is one of my favorite countries in Europe. I think I'm a big wine drinker. I like pizza and pasta, even though now I'm not really eating dairy because my body can't handle it. But when I was eating a lot of dairy, that's the place. cheese, and
Mm-hmm.
pizzas and pastas and beautiful scenery. And yeah, I would say I'll go with it. This is a question I'd probably have to think about, but I'll go with Italy.
Okay. And then one more question for you. If there was one hidden place that you would tell people to go visit, maybe that's not known. So one hidden place in Europe that people should go visit.
Oh, I actually just thought of another place I've been in. I'll use as my hidden place, Portugal. So Portugal, I went in 2017, and yeah, I think it's not a place people automatically think of. You think I can't speak for other people, but from an American perspective, a lot of times it's like, okay, Italy, France, Spain, or for music people, it's Amsterdam, the Netherlands, of course, or Belgium for Tomorrowland, right? Germany for Oktoberfest. But I think a lot of people don't think about Portugal, and Portugal, everything was really cheap compared to in the US and compared to the Netherlands, which was really awesome. And yeah, just again, if you like wine and you like good food, like it's a good place to go. So I'd say Portugal.
Awesome. No, that's sick. All right, so let's talk it. Let's bring it back to festivals here.
Okay.
Favorite European festival that you've been to?
Yes. Okay. So this is also a tough question. So the first festival I went to here in Europe was in 2014, and when I was studying abroad here, and it was Harmony of Hardcore. Harmony of Hardcore is a hard dance festival here in the Netherlands, and it's like the harder of the harder style. So not hard style, but like Frenchcore, up tempo, hardcore. It's 200 BPM type of stuff. And like that was the first time I heard that music on a big stage. And I have to say, Harmony of Hardcore has a very, very special place in my heart. I'm just gonna say one other festival. Just I'll give you two. The other one is Mysteryland. Mysteryland. I think everybody knows Mysteryland who listens to the podcast, but I'll just say it's a bit outside of Amsterdam, and it is a 3-day camping multi-genre festival. And yeah, I'll give you those two: Harmony of Hardcore and Mysteryland.
All right, so I gotta ask it again. This is for the clip right here.
Okay. All right.
Favorite festival in Europe?
Oh, those are both in Europe. Oh,
I know.
mean like
I know. You gotta get
oh
you gotta pick one. You gotta
ooh.
pick one. So ready? Here we go. Relax. You got this. You first close your eyes. First one that comes to mind.
Okay.
What's your favorite festival that you'd recommend in Europe?
Wait, one more second. Let me think for a second. So also maybe there's another festival that I want to say. Is this for me, or this is what I recommend to other people?
Yeah, so okay, we'll do that then. Yeah. What's one festival you'd recommend for people to go visit in Europe?
Yeah, I think that's better. Okay. So for people coming to Europe and looking to have an amazing festival experience, I would recommend to them Mysteryland. Mysteryland is located outside of Amsterdam. It's 3 days camping. They have a variety of different camping options, and it's just beautiful. There's a lot of like cool scenery, and it's multi-genre. So you have, house music, you have your big EDM guys, guys and girls. Yeah, you get there's some dubstep, hard style, hard dance. It's a mix of everything. I think if you want that full European like multi-day camping experience and you will like a little bit of everything, that Mysteryland, I would say.
Awesome. No, I've never been, and I haven't been to anything in Europe yet, but I've heard of it, and that'd be cool. I'm gonna have to check it out more because I'm looking to make some abroad trips coming up here. So
do it.
At least next. I need to some more. I've been doing a lot of work here, so it's time to start branching out a bit, seeing more of the world. What is something I think here in the States we always like to question and we're always curious about, and we see that there's a different culture specifically in raving too. Like we're specifically talking about raving. We see there's a different rave culture overseas and in the States. We see there's a difference. We always see comments too, like, "Oh, this isn't how it is in England or whatever." Something. I've had that on my own posts. People being like, "Oh, your parties end at 3," like stuff like that, like snotty little comments. But like, what is a difference that you've noticed in the rave community between the U.S. and Europe as a whole?
The biggest difference that I've seen between the US rave scene and the European rave scene is the style of dress. In the US, especially as a rave girl, let's say at EDC Orlando, for example, I had like the rave girl braids. I had the 2 braids done by Get Braidified. I had a full on outfit. I had candy. I had glitter. I had face gems. I had like fake temporary tattoos. The only thing I didn't have is like the rave girl shoes because I'm like really clumsy. I'm gonna like break my leg, but those huge shoes girls wear too. Like that is very American. Here in Europe, from what I've observed in the 6 years that I've lived here, you don't see that. Every once in a while, you will see someone, and they're usually American. People dress more traditionally in streetwear, athletic wear, or what we see a lot is people wearing merchandise from the event or from another event. So for example, at DEF CON is a hardstyle festival here in the Netherlands. You'll see people wearing shirts from Climax or from Decibel or Reverse, which are other hardstyle festivals, other, big ones here in Europe. So that's the first biggest difference. The second biggest difference is flow arts. So in the US, always you see people with the LED hoops and gloves and poi. And I have to say, in my 6 years here, I've only seen one person with gloves one time, and I'm out almost every weekend, and you don't see that. So those are the two biggest differences: is the way people dress, and then also flow arts are just not a thing here.
Interesting. Yeah, the flow arts. Does that include like loving?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so gloving, like I've only seen one person glove here like one time. Yeah, I haven't seen, when I first moved here, I had an Orbit, like I think it was called an Orbit.
Oh yeah. Those are
And
cool.
I would like bring it out, and like the batteries died, and then I never replaced the batteries, and I don't know where it is now. But
That's me with my gloves. I just never buy. Like, I don't want to buy
this
no
is too much
batteries.
effort. I don't want to buy. Yeah, same thing with my like Tamagotchi. Like I don't want to buy, like just buying the watch battery. I know, for some reason, for me that's like a no. Like I don't want to buy the battery. Draw the line there. I'm not buying weird batteries. And then it's just like someone else can take this from me. Anyway, that's a side note. Yeah, it's just not a thing here. I think that's just something that's very American. It's very American in the rave subculture to have these crazy outfits. I think also people dress a bit more conservatively here as well. I know Europeans who have come over to American events, and they're like, everyone's like naked. Like they're like, why is everyone naked? Even in the winter, like why
Even in the winter.
Yeah, even in the winter. Like
No, it's true. It's true.
I lived in Connecticut and Washington D.C. and went out a lot in New York, and yeah, people wearing pasties and thongs in the dead of winter. It's like it's cold.
Yeah, I mean, props to the girls, because not a chance. I would like to be comfy. I actually prefer raving in the cold because I love the fact that I can wear sweatpants or or like a jogger, and then I can put a jacket on in a jersey or something. Does anyone wear jerseys over there in Europe? Do you see jerseys at all? Like
I
artist
don't
jerseys and stuff?
No, I don't see them that often. Certainly not as much as in the US. No, like I know, like you have like an Millennium one, I think, or Seven Lions one. I have good friends of mine who love Alice in Wonderland. They have no, I haven't seen, no, here in Europe. Jerseys are not so much of a big thing. Bomber jackets are really popular here. So you'll have like a bomber jacket from the event or from the organization. It's interesting you brought up Thunderdome, because we also have a Thunderdome here in the Netherlands. It's a different kind of Thunderdome, but we also have an event called Thunderdome, and you will see commonly people wearing a Thunderdome bomber jacket. I have a couple of like bomber jackets as well.
That's hysterical. I like bomb. Sorry, that's not hysterical. I have a funny story with bomber jackets
Sure.
at Lost Lands. One of my buddies, I have a video. It's on my Lost Lands vlog from 2022, I think. And buys this, he buys something merch from Lost Lands, and he's like, and it's freezing out. That year it was like 50s the whole time. I loved it, but he was like, I gotta buy a jacket, and he thought he bought a hoodie. He's like, yo, check out my hoodie. And he opens it up and he holds it out, right? And he goes, and he's holding it, and he's like, where's the hood? And I'm like, you idiot, you bought a
Oh
bomber
no,
jacket.
my gosh. You're like, that's not a hoodie.
And
There's
he
a huge
spent
difference between a hoodie and a bomber jacket.
huge difference. And he spent like $150 thinking it was a hoodie,
That's a really expensive hoodie.
which also is the other part of that story. We're like, did you not think like this hoodie was so much more expensive than the other ones?
And so big too. Jackets are
Oh my
traditionally
God.
much larger than. That's really funny. But yeah, that's a. Did he keep the jacket then?
He did. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's
He
good.
wears it occasionally. Now I can tell him he needs to go to Europe. He'll fit right in.
Oh yeah, they love the bomber jackets here.
So I know you work for a couple places. You work for Hardstyle Magazine. You just started working for EDM House Network, is it? Did I get that
That's
correct?
correct. Yep.
So we'll touch a little bit on those, but I'm curious, how did you start working in the scene?
Yeah, so it's a very long story. I started working in the scene when I was in college. So I went to college in Washington, D.C. between 2009 and 2013. And I think it was around 2011 or 2012 where it got to the point where I was like going out so much that they were like, do you want to work here? Like one of the club's called Ultra Bar. I'm not sure if it's still around in DC, but they had a lot of electronic music events at the time. And they also had a lot of, ladies' nights, college Tuesdays, like things that were very attractive to, an 18, 19-year-old girl like me that was looking for that kind of, those kind of evenings. And yeah, I was always there and I was always bringing people to the club. I always showed up with my whole squad. I've always been a very social person. So they asked me if I wanted to be a club promoter and I became a club promoter. And that was my first job working in the scene. And then from there, I did other promotion jobs. I ran promotion teams. Then I slowly began to organize events, write articles, started, the story goes on and on. Obviously a lot of time has passed since then, but to make a very long story short, I started as a club promoter.
And then where did you make the jump into writing? Was it with a certain publication, a certain festival? Like, when did you start making those jumps?
Yeah, so I first started writing articles, I think it was around 2017. So I was already living in the Netherlands and I just created a Wix website, like a really simple website. I'm not a graphic designer or web developer by any point, so it probably looked horrible. But I just started a website and I just started writing about events. I'd buy a ticket to an event and just like whenever I had time, just write about it because just so many weird things would happen at events. Like, so just I would go for a weekend, for example, to use DEF CON as an example, and just like so many things would happen. So I just would write it down and publish it on my Wix website. I didn't think anybody saw it. I didn't think anybody cared. The pictures were with my like iPhone 4, like it was very low effort, low budget, no budget. Yeah, actually somebody was watching and you and I have had this conversation before. Like, you never know what's going to take you to the next step. Like, you never know
Yep.
what's going to bring you to that next level. You just do stuff, you make content, you do what you do. And yeah, someone was watching and I wrote an article called How to Survive and Thrive at DEF CON because it had gotten to the point where all these Americans were asking me, like, how early do I need to buy tickets for DEF CON? What are the camping options? How much does it cost? Can you bring glass? Can you bring food? So many? So I'm like, I'm just going to make an article and like send it to them. And here's all the information. Here's how the shuttle works. Here's how tokens work. Here's how festival, like, so I made a comprehensive, once again, very organized, very structured, a very comprehensive guide how to survive and thrive at DEF CON. And there was someone watching, and it was this guy who owned this publication called The Hard Data. And The Hard Data was an American hard dance publication. And they asked me to write for them. So I started to write for them. They're no longer around, but that kind of got my foot in the door to attend events, to write reviews, to interview artists. And yeah, it just slowly grew more and more from there. I also had a lot of artists asking me to write artist spotlights for them. A lot of artists need artist spotlights for their visas to come to America. They need to have, for the O1 and P1 visas, you need to have an article written by an American journalist. So a lot of artists were coming to me to write these things. And yeah, and then I started in March 2022 working for Hardstyle Mag right when Corona ended, right when the pandemic ended. Like I said earlier, it ended for us in February 2022. So right after that, they approached me and they asked me if I wanted to start writing for them. And
Awesome.
for EDM House Network, it was very recent. Like it was in the last few, I think just right before Ultra. I was already following them on Instagram. They're incredibly popular. And I saw they were looking for writers. So I reached out to Dylan and I was like, hey, I'm a writer, sent him all my stuff, had some conversations back and forth. And yeah, he brought me on. So now I'm also writing for them.
That's awesome. It is so crazy how those opportunities just build off of like things you like and things you're doing, and you start putting effort into those things, and then it's comes back, and like you said, you didn't. They offered to you, like they came and reached out to you for both opportunities, and that must felt like amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting start doing things I want to do and things I enjoy, and the opportunities it's done. I mean, like you get to go to these festivals and you can go for fun and you might have to cover them, but like you're getting to go. You're getting to go. Do you get to go to a lot of these for free technically because you'll be working at part of it?
Yes, yeah. So to be transparent, it's always for free. It's always covered by the organization because I'm writing a review for them. So that it's like it's publicity, it's promotion for them. I'm also always making content at these events as well. So the organization provides me with the press pass and usually a press plus one, and then yeah, my costs are usually covered by who's sending me there, and yeah, that's how I make it work. But it's a good trade-off for them too, because like they arrange that for me, and then in exchange, like they get my very in-depth articles where no stone is left unturned. They can get artist interviews. Sometimes I go live. I'm also flexible. Like I'm always asking, like, do they want me to write any pre-articles? Because I also write like all you need to knows, because those are handy to have before an event, especially this company I work for out in Croatia, like what do you bring? What do you bring to Croatia? Like what do you bring? Like, or DEF
Yeah.
CON, like what do you bring? Like people have all those kind of questions, and it's nice to have something in one place. And it also helps the organization as well, because like they can just share that article rather than responding to like 100 people's messages of like, how much is the taxi cost from the airport to the festival, or like how much, these kind of simple things that can probably be Googled, but people don't Google.
100%. I mean, there is a definitely a niche and need for that stuff because, I mean, it's one thing to Google and like shift through stuff and find it, but if you know like this person does reliable content and has reliable articles, I'm just gonna go there every time. Like it is like a very simplistic way of like, I see this person, I like what they're doing, boom, I'm gonna go to them. And it definitely works. I mean, come on, you got this far with it, it's awesome.
Yeah, thank
So
you. And I think also what sets me apart too, just being a native English speaker, being a native English writer, having to write all these things in English obviously is not a problem for me. It's my native language. So that's been a real plus too. And then just also the flexibility that I have with my normal job, so that I can work from we've talked about a few times, like work from home life. One of the many positives of that is that I can just take my laptop and go. So I'm going to Tomorrowland this summer. I'm going to World Club Dome. Again, I'm going to Croatia. And yeah, if I need to work, I take my laptop with me. And so I think all of that goes into it as well, that my life is it's kind of built for this right now.
yeah, you take that laptop, you work Friday till 5, and then close it, you're
Shut
partying for
it
the
fast.
weekend.
Yeah. Out of
Yeah.
office reply. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I understand that. Sometimes it's a little bit harder over here. We gotta finagle it. Yeah. The main thing for me, and I'm curious, is travel. So like working from home, like you're saying, like you can go to a festival. But for me, it's like I have to work around the hours to travel. Because unless I want to take PTO, which you can, and there's no problem. But it's like I'll like fly out at like ridiculously horrible hours. Like when I went to Vegas, I flew out from East Coast at 9, landed in Vegas at like 1 a.m., went to bed, woke up at 7, started
Oof.
working.
Oh my God.
And then on the way home, I left Vegas at, which was even like worse. I left Vegas at 10:30 p.m. and then landed in Florida at 5:45
Oh
a.m.
my God.
and then stayed up and just worked the day. But
Yeah.
I didn't have to
Ugh.
take any PTO.
Oh my
It's
God.
horrible. Don't do it to yourself. That's my advice.
Yeah, and it also becomes complicated when there's a time difference involved. When
Oh,
there's like the jet lag involved. For some reason, it takes me like 5 days to get over jet lag. Like it takes a really long time, and obviously, I can't take so many days off like that. So you find what works for you. You work through it, and yeah, I mean, I am lucky with that my job is flexible. Because I am like technically a freelancer, technically a subcontractor, which is great in that I don't need to apply for time off, but it's not great in that I don't get paid for the time off that I take. I don't get PTO as a freelancer. So that you have that trade-off where like, okay, I can just be like, I can get on a plane to Croatia, but I have to plan like, okay, well, how many hours am I going to work up until that point? Am I going to work when I'm there? Am I going to work on the plane? There is still planning that needs to be involved, even though there is that flexibility there as well.
yeah, you're kind of like your own business owner in a sense when you're
Mm-hmm.
an own contractor and you kind of run your day to day and you got to get
Yep.
it in order. It's a great, like you said, it is positives and negatives to both. But that positive is like, hey, I'm a contractor. I'm not. I can work kind of when I want, and I'll get the work done. Obviously you hit a deadline, of course, but like, yeah, it's nice in that sense. When
Definitely.
you're going to festivals for Hardstyle Magazine or EDM House Network, what is your day-to-day like when you're covering the event? Are you covering it for sure all 3 days? I would think yes, you could write something for each day, but just curious on so let's start from the beginning, right? You arrive at the festival, go. Where we go?
Do you want to
Where you
hear
start?
about weekenders or one day festivals
Ooh, didn't even
or
think about that.
both?
I was thinking weekenders, like a
Okay,
3 day
sure.
event. Yeah,
Sure.
let's do 3 day event.
So with a 3 day event, so first things first with an article, I always first cover how I got there. So my first subsection is always getting there. Was it complicated to get there? Was it easy to get there? Did I have to take an organized shuttle? Was it a really long walk from the parking lot? Was the cost of parking astronomical? I can't say that, astronomical. Like what steps did I take to get there? Was it easy to check in? Obviously, as press, I have a different check-in usually from the general admission, but how was the getting there process? That's the first thing that I cover. The next thing I cover is if I'm camping, what is the campsite like? So, where are we pitching our tent? What kind of facilities do they have? Like, are there showers there? Is there places to eat at the campsite? Is there a general store? What is the overall vibe of the campsite? What are the camping options that they have? What is the one that I went for? All of that kind of stuff. When I first arrive at the festival grounds, the first thing that I do, obviously, well, other than like go to the bathroom and get a locker, but the first, thing I do toward the article is I do a lap of the festival. So I take my phone with the video and I'm recording all around. The whole time that I'm there, I'm taking notes. So I either do video notes, voice notes, or text notes. It just depends on what's happening. But first things first, walking around the festival, I walk by each of the stages and I'm taking notes of the stages. So for example, at Ultra, I was like, okay, this is the Oasis stage. This is the talent stage. Where is it located? What kind of music do they have there? What's the vibe? Okay, next is the resistance megastructure. I just do that for each stage. Also, as I'm walking around, what kind of food do they have? What kind of drinks do they have? What are the prices like? For example, at Ultra, it was like, $15 for a beer or something like that. How much do things cost? Is it tokens? Can you pay with a card? Do you have one of those tap wristbands? So I think people can already get the idea that my reviews are extremely detail oriented. I cover everything. So those are kind of the first things. Then I get into the music. So I go in already with kind of a plan of who I want to see. And it just kind of depends. Obviously, for Hardstyle Mag, the focus needs to be on hardstyle. But if I am at a major event like Mysteryland or Ultra, Mysteryland, I think I wrote about W&W as well. They're pretty big, Ultra, I wrote about Marshmallow, I wrote about Hardwell. So if there is someone really big, or if there's someone that's in a crossover of genres, for example, Charlotte DeWitt, people who like hardstyle usually like Charlotte DeWitt. They usually like hard techno. So I'll cover her as well. Try to think what resonates best with my audience. And then also who I want to see too. So I don't write about every set that I see, but I write about, I usually am taking notes for all the sets, and then I choose who's going to go into the article. And also depends too, there's some people who are playing multiple days at a festival. So if I see them on Friday and Saturday, I'll choose which to write about. One other important thing is I'm always using Shazam on my phone to get the correct name of the song. Obviously, if it's a track
Yeah.
ID and it's not released yet, nothing you can do. But I'm taking notes on my phone at that point. What tracks are they playing? Did they release any new tracks? And sometimes I'll reach out to the artist before too, and they'll tell me like, I knew Marshmello was going to do something with Faruko at Ultra because I was told by their press, be there. He's going to do something with Faruko. It's going to be really big. Please cover it. So I was like, here I am. I'm there. So yeah, there's a lot of other things that go into the article. I could keep going on, but I feel like that's already a pretty long answer. Those are the main first things that I do when it comes to planning an article, writing an article, which is already a lot. And I feel like I'm not even halfway done.
What do you do for do you do like a post-fest analysis too? Like day three's ended, this is how it was to get in and out, blah, blah, blah. Like, do you go to that details as well?
Yeah, so it depends on the event. So with a 3 day with a 3 or more than 3 day event, I'm writing the article when I get home. Obviously, I have all the notes on my phone, I have all the videos, things like that. But I usually do day-to-day recaps on Instagram. And sometimes I do it from the Hardstyle Mag account, sometimes I do it from my account or cross post it. But I do like day one recap. And also because aside from all the writing stuff, I also do content and have, relationships with different brands. So like today I wore Relita Couture and I was at Marshmallow Set and we were at Ultra, blah, blah, blah. So I do kind of day by day recaps, but for the articles, like I write it when I get home, organize it. And usually I will organize it day by day. Yeah. So like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in addition to my usual organization, which is like getting there, stages, music, stage design, but it gets complicated when it's multi-day. Some articles I do day by day, others I won't. I'll just put it all into it. Just depends on the event. And it depends too how different the days were as well. If it's if the stages totally change, between the 3 days or something really big happened, every night there was a different fireworks show, then I do need to divide it by day. But if it was kind of just one long festival that happened to span multiple days, then I can categorize it differently.
Right. No, I totally get that. That's awesome. That's very insightful. I like how you give a full synopsis of the stuff of like camping grounds and all that. I think that's super useful. I mean, that's something people are, first timers are always going to want to listen. There's always going to be an audience for that. That's really key. I like that a lot.
Thanks. My goal is to make people feel like they're there. And anytime someone tells me that after they read one of my articles, I know I did a good job. I want people to say to me, I felt it was so detail oriented that I thought I was there. And like when I'm reading reviews or I'm watching guides, I want to feel like that as well. And there's a lot of people who inspire me. One is like Emma Capotis with her festival guides. She was a guest on my podcast. I was a guest on hers as well. And yeah, like I like that extreme amount of detail because once again, I'm an organized person. I'm a Capricorn. I'm type A. I want to know what the campsite is like. I want to know if I need to bring stuff or if there's a store there. I want to know if I need to walk 10 miles from the parking lot because that's going to determine if I buy a cart to drag all my stuff, or what camping option I'm going to choose. If it is so far to travel and I don't have a car, am I going to choose for one of the pre-set up campsites instead of lugging all my camping stuff 2 hours on the train, tram, bus, etc.? So it's all kind of things that you want to know that you might not be able to get from the festival website because they're not going to say on the festival website it's a 6-mile walk from where the bus drops you off to the campsite. Why would they tell you that? Then you'll be like,
just imagine that. Just imagine. Just a quick disclaimer, everybody. We're gonna
be prepared. You're gonna have to walk very far in mud uphill on like rocky terrain. Like, no, they're not gonna tell you that. But if you read my review and I tell you, okay, Mysteryland, we did walk quite far, or DEF CON, there is this infamous bridge. It's this, you have to go up these stairs, and this is very long bridge. And anyone who's been to DEF CON knows the bridge. And it's good to know that. And especially if you're someone who carries a lot of stuff, or, you want to know what shoes, if you're a girl, you want to know what shoes to wear, you'd be prepared and don't wear those white shoes, you're going to get muddy.
Yeah, 100%. Even for the guys, I don't want my shoes to get muddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Which shoes do I wear? My throwaway ones or my fun ones? Yeah.
Or wear your throwaway ones and bring those fun ones in the bag that you bring in. But you wouldn't know that, again, from the festival website. They're not going to be like, we are on a very muddy terrain. Why would they tell you that? So that's where I come in.
Sneaky little bastards. They need to tell us everything. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Try to give people that experience. Yeah.
I love that detail. If I'm honest, you just gave me so much insight on things I can do to improve my vlogs, to be honest. Like I love vlogging, and I've been thinking, how can I refine it and make it better? Swear to God, I had to take notes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy stuff. Like, I don't know. I never thought of it. I always thought about showing the event, but not the full encompassing picture of the event, which is, right when you said it, it clicks. I'm like, yeah, who wouldn't want to know that stuff? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And you're not going to, and again, like a lot of information you're not going to get from their website. Also, the prices of things too are going up every year. And they're not going to say on the website, like, hey, when you get here, just so you know, we don't take cards, or maybe they will, but like, or hey, just so you know, like you're going to have to get tokens, just so you know, like beer's $15. Like it's good for people to budget as well and to know how much, money to bring in. Obviously, I cover other things as well outside of what I said. And that's also, the visuals, the lights, the sound system, my general impressions, the atmosphere, those kind of things as well. But yeah, like focusing on those small details, giving people like information. I think that's what sets my reviews apart. And I think that's what I'm best known for is like Amy goes in deep.
no, that's awesome. As you should. But that's why you have such a successful career in this right now. Like people like to read it, people want to read it, and the magazines want to cover that stuff. And they probably love your articles because of that. Like that's a big thing they would probably love about you. It's like she's
Thank you.
in depth, she's on top of it. That's fantastic. Another thing you're very good and in depth on and is your podcast. You're very thorough and you have phenomenal episodes. Mine's probably the best on there, but let people decide that.
Shameless
But
plug.
yes, there's no shame. I was ready for that one.
Full shame plug.
But when did I'm curious, when was the idea for you to start this podcast? That's something we've connected on. That's how we connected, was podcasting. Obviously our love for music, but podcasting is what got us connected. How did you start, and what was the idea behind starting that?
Sure. So I started Drop Bass Not Bombs in 2017 as a way to bring together electronic music and charity, a way to organize events. And we all know what happened in 2020. No more events. And obviously I wanted to keep Drop Bass Not Bombs alive. It's my company. It's my baby. So how can we as an organization pivot to fit to the times? Well, live streams instead of live events. Okay. But then also people got a little burned out from live streams, at least here. I also got burned out from live streams. I was like hosting so many of them as an MC too. And I decided to start a podcast. And I actually wanted to start a podcast for a long time because I love podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts, not just electronic music. Also, I think we talked about this on my podcast too. I like true crime and like scammers and cults and things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I love podcasting as a medium. And yeah, so in 2021, during the pandemic, I started a podcast and I interview interesting people in the electronic music scene who are raving for a cause, making the world a better place. And yeah, I'm still doing it.
No, I know. I love it. Do you have a specific type of, I think I know the answer, but do you have a specific type of person within the industry that you're going for, or just anything? I think from what I've seen, it's a little bit of everything. You've got people like myself or influencers. You've got people that have their own brand. You cover festivals, like a little bit of everything. But for those who don't know.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I've covered everybody. So artists, vocalists, industry professionals, doctors, lawyers, content creators, a little bit of everyone. I think my target audience is people in the electronic music scene who want to know more about what goes on behind the scenes and want to make a difference. So on every episode of the podcast, I always ask my guests, how do you rave for a cause? How do you party for a purpose? And I think my listeners are also people who want to do that, whether it's like through sustainability or through harm reduction. So I just had on the podcast someone from End Overdose, Darcy Machero. In the past, I've had people from Bye Bye Plastic, just people doing amazing things in the scene, because this scene is the best. Everyone that I know at least is passionate, and we want to make the world a better place. So I want to give people the chance to explain what they do and maybe inspire someone.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to my answer because I totally forgot it. And now I'm nervous as to what I said to that.
I'm trying to remember what you said. I was re-listening this morning too, but while I was doing other things.
I didn't get to that part. I don't think so. I'm sure it was something to do with the theme of mine and the brand, live yourself every. I'm sure it was something to that. But now I'm trying to rack my brain. I'm like, what did I say? But do you? And this is just a question. Is when it says drop bass, and is it oriented around specific genres in EDM or EDM as a whole, for those that don't know?
So Drop Bass Not Bombs was always supposed to be about EDM as a whole. But because my heart beats at 200 beats per minute, we have found ourselves in the hard dance genre a lot when it comes to organizing events and live streams and even the guests we have on the podcast. So I make a conscious effort to really try to have different guests and not just like, hard dance DJs, to have other people as well. And we've had a lot of diversity in terms of like what jobs people do, but it's been predominantly hard dance. But I am trying. So coming up on the podcast, I just interviewed B Jones. She's a Spanish EDM DJ. She was the first Spanish DJ to play on the main stage of Tomorrowland, which was really cool. So that's like a bit different. And then coming up, I also have Bass Drop Princess. She's like in the dubstep scene. So, and you were on my podcast. You're more in like melodic and dubstep. So I've had a mix in Emma Capotis and Party Perry, and I've mixed a mix of people. But when it comes to the artists and DJs, vocalists, it's mostly been hard dance, and that's just because my network is also mostly hard dance, so it's easier for me to get people that I know, my friends on.
100%. You gotta get right. It's how it gets started. It's how those things get moving. Curious too. What would you say your goal with podcast and brand is going down the road? Is it to continue just what you're saying, that message, or do you want to grow to something bigger? Just curious to see where your thoughts are with that.
Yeah, it continues to evolve and grow. Like I said, before the pandemic, we were really focused on organizing live events. And people would ask me all the time, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm like, I want to organize a festival. And now I'm like, a festival? Oh, I don't know. Just because the times have changed so much. So in 2017, when someone said 5 years from now, I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a festival. And now I'm like, okay, well, we've only done 2 events, because of Corona. So maybe we're not going to do a festival straight away. But I think it's the same mission of raving for a cause, but I would like to take it to a much bigger scale. Whether that's a festival or whether that's growing the podcast, whether that's growing social media, whether, it's doing community events. So one other thing I really want to start doing is like community events. I really want to do like DJ classes for kids, or, people who are going through a rough time, to give them a chance, like get up behind the decks, DJ. And like we were talking about at the top of this episode, just the impact music makes in people's lives. And yeah, that would be something I would be looking forward to doing in the future.
Yeah. Kids rave and no judge rave. Everyone's just.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just thought of a hysterical idea. But like, what if it was for people like myself who sometimes get like a little self-conscious about like dancing and stuff like that? What if you did like a blindfold rave? But hear me out. You give like everyone that you like had staff that like walked people to their like little pod, and then when they're there, the music's played, but they can just like do
my God.
like just do however you want to do it, because no one can see, you can't be judged.
I love that. And I also love that because you have the disconnect, and this is going to sound really contradictory because I do so much content and stuff on my phone, but then you can't be on your phone if you're blindfolded. So obviously that's a big contradiction, being someone who just told you that, like, yeah, I'm on my phone filming, I'm on my phone Shazamming, I'm taking notes, I'm like going live, I have content. Okay. But I always grapple and struggle with the balance between doing all this stuff and then enjoying the moment. And I think what you just described of being blindfolded, which sounds like at some point kidnapped, like blindfolded in a box, dancing, you're 100% present in the moment. You can't be on your phone if you're blindfolded. You also can't talk to people, because a lot of times, when you're in the party mode, sometimes you just start chatting. Next thing you know, you just spend 30 minutes talking to someone in the bathroom. Like if you're in the situation that you're describing, you're really present. You're really focused. You only have you and the music. You're not having those 3 a.m. bathroom conversations or outside in the smoking area. You're not on your phone. You're not filming. You can't do anything. You're just blindfolded in a box.
That's another thing is we maybe develop is the no phone rave. So you go in, you get swiped, you get scanned by security. If you have any phone on you, you give it to somebody, they put it in a locker. Here's your ticket. Boom, boom, boom. No phone rave. Just vibes. I know people have had that idea before, but
yeah, it exists.
I don't know, it exists. They have one already.
Yeah. So I don't want to be like misquoted, but in Germany, we'll fact check this, but in Germany, in Berlin, there's a club called Berghain. I'm going to be pronouncing it wrong. Berghain. Anyone who loves techno will know this club. You're not allowed to bring phones, and a lot of things that go on there are naughty and they don't want it to be filmed. But it is kind of one of those, what you would think stereotypical Berlin raves of, you can go in and do whatever you want, but like you give them your phone or your phone goes in a locker. They have also a very strict policy an infamous policy of who they let in. It's incredibly hard to get in. I've never been to Berlin. I'm actually going in a few weeks. I don't know if I'll make it. I don't think I'll be going to this club. I don't think I'll have time, but yeah, that's the no phone raves do exist. There are clubs that have those policies, and I think that's something that's just really interesting, especially for us as music lovers, but content creators at the same time. How do you balance being in the moment and having a great time when also like this is your work? Like you need to film stuff for work or take notes for work. And the in-depth articles that I write, I don't think I could remember, like I wouldn't remember the specific prices of the empanadas at the festival unless I wrote it down. Like, why would I remember that?
I got you. That's funny though. Yeah, no, 100%. I didn't know that was existed. I don't know if there's anything in the States here like that, but definitely something we should get. Maybe we'll get something rolling out here in Florida.
Yeah, the blindfold idea. I like
Time.
that.
I think that's hysterical. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be as big of a hit as we think it might be.
We can try. We can only try.
There's a lot of liability issues with that. You're
It sounded
blindfolded.
kind of dangerous. Yeah, it sounded a little. What if like a
There's a lot
fire
of,
happens or something?
well, I mean, you could take it off, but like the idea
Okay, you're
is
not stuck in
don't.
the.
Yeah, you're not stuck. You're not stuck. You're not stuck.
Oh my god.
Amy, I've had a blast with doing this with you. I've got one more question for you,
Sure.
and it is, how are you living yourself for every day? That is the theme of this podcast. And I truthfully, that's why you're on. I only have people that I think are really doing that. And I think you are. You seem to be enjoying everything you do, from working with the festivals to your day to day. How are you living yourself every day?
Yeah, I love this question. And to be honest, there was so much in my life where I wasn't living for myself every day. I was living for other people, whether it was for my parents or for school. You could probably gather this about me by now, but I'm an overachiever. I'm a perfectionist. I really want to, succeed and thrive. And a lot of the decisions I was making in my life weren't based on what I wanted to do. It was based on what I thought was expected of me. And it was, variety of factors affecting that. But I feel like now, like I've talked about, I am really working hard to create this life for myself, and it's not to say I don't help other people or do things for other people, but
Right.
I'm doing now only things that I want to do. And there was, especially when I was in college, I was doing a million things that I didn't want to do. And I was miserable. I'm like, why am I a member of this club? Or like, why am I working at this place that I hate? And like, okay, sometimes, you need the money, you do what you have to do. But I try to ask myself, the question that Marie Kondo from that organization show asked, like, does it bring you joy? I do that with not stuff because I'm kind of a hoarder, but with life, to be honest, I don't do that with my stuff. Like you can see my background, like all my things bring me joy, but no, seriously, I do that with the opportunities that I have, because I am really grateful that I've had so many different opportunities and people approach me with jobs and things, and you have to pick and choose, and you have to see what you like. And if you're not happy and every day you're miserable, and if something's not bringing you joy anymore, let it go, do something else. And now I'm trying to only fill my days with, obviously you have things you don't like taxes and cleaning, but the majority of things you should be doing for yourself.
Of course. That's just, I love that. That's exactly how everyone should be living. I hope if anyone listens to this, they take a tidbit of that. I mean, do things, gravitate to things that you love and you're enjoying doing. Obviously, just like you said, there's some leeway with that. Certain things, certain times you might have to step up and do something you might not want to do. But yeah, I mean, even I'm with you on that. I mean, that's something I'm learning as I've been growing and doing this more and more. It's like, okay, what do you like doing? Well, I like to do the podcast. I like to create content. I hate editing. So why would I edit? I'm just going to give that to someone else. Like, it's like, something even that small, like that minuscule is so important. But no, God, I love that. That is exactly the whole energy we want to bring on this podcast. That's literally like to a T the theme. Like you've
Good.
nailed it. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Thank
even
you
if
so much.
and that's again, like I've said to you before when we were talking about doing this episode, like it is a very open-ended question. There's no right or wrong answer. But I mean, that encompasses the podcast. Like you're doing that to a T of like, I want to do things that make me happy. I'm living myself. And that brings so much more joy. I mean, I can't. It's so liberating,
Thank you. It's taken me, I want to be transparent, it's taken me a very long time to get to this place. It's just within the last couple years that it's really starting to come together. And it's not to say it's not without hardship or bad days or struggles. Of course, we all have those, but if you can figure out what it is that you love to do, and if you can make money from it, that's even better. And then just like doing things that you love. What is it that you enjoy? And if there's anything that's not, and like for me, there was, like I said, there was just so many things that I was doing that I didn't like doing. And like, why are you doing it? Especially if you're not making any money from it, why are you doing it? It makes no sense.
100%. And you nailed it. It's not like this is like you wake up one day and you're like, oh shit, I like love this and I'm happy now. Like it's like it takes a little time and maybe some trial and error for you to figure out like, okay, I think I like this. And then you go do it, and then you're like, oh wait, I don't. And you got to start over. And a lot of people don't like the idea of starting over, but like you said, like it eventually you get to that point where you find out like, oh, I like covering music festivals and working for Hardstyle Mag, and boom, I'm gonna keep doing that because I like it. But I might not have liked it when I did deep dark house techno, whatever, whatever you
Yeah,
might have
yeah.
done before. And you're like,
Right.
I don't really care for this part of it, but I really love this part. Like there's that trial and error that comes with it. But once you find it, that's when you like, if you can hone in and nail it, things start to progress and move quicker. Cause like when you're focused, I always think of this of like when you're focused on one thing and that's your desire, you have the availability to put your energy into that. And then you're putting your energy in, and the universe is kind of seeing that energy go there, and it starts to like give back to you a bit, whether that's in an opportunity or, for instance, with podcasts, let's say we both can relate to that. Like maybe a guest that you normally didn't think you could get decides to come on, or they want you on their show, like something of that nature. Once you start putting that energy in, it just starts to kind of come back to you, and it's like rewarding you for the good energy you're putting in. It comes back to you, type of thing.
Yeah, I'm a
So
big believer in that as well. And I am doing my affirmations every day and manifesting. Yeah, my boyfriend makes fun of me. I listen to this thing at night, and it's like, wealth manifestations or dream manifestations. It's like money flows easily to me. It's like opportunities come to me every day. And it's like, it sounds silly and it sounds stupid, but it's all about your mindset. And we talked about this when you were on my podcast as well, because I told you I went through a difficult time where I didn't think I had any skills and I was just really down in the dumps, and I was only working shitty jobs, and I was also attracting those jobs because I didn't think I had the skills to do the jobs that I wanted to do. So you have to be in the right mindset. It's all about so much of it is mental. Yep.
so much of it is that mentality of, yeah, like if you find something that you're into and you're like, I think I can do this, and then you believe in it, you almost have to, it's almost like the most successful people have like this like delusion of like, I can do this and I'm gonna be so good at it. And I mean, like you almost have to have that delusion of like, I am that good. Like, and not,
Yeah.
and again, there's gotta be a good balance. Like I always say to people, you can live yourself for every day and not be a dick about it. You know what I mean? Like you can do the things you want to do and enjoy them and not be like an asshole to somebody.
Yeah, you can still be nice and obviously still do things for other people. Like if a friend says I need help moving, I've helped a lot of friends move, and like, and but then they've helped me too. People always help me. So it's not to say, you're not doing things for other people, but it's just looking at in general the things that are doing. And if you're doing more things for other, like way more things for other people than yourself, or which I've also been there too. It's like
I've been
I've
there. That's a
done all these things for all these people, but like, what about for myself?
it's a hard lesson to learn for people that I would say are like heavy hearted, kind of like,
Hmm.
is that the
Like
term?
empaths.
Yeah, empaths are like really like want to help and do things. That's something I grew up being taught that, like being nice to people and always helping,
Hmm.
and that's a great thing to have. The issue you come around is like other people aren't taught that, and you might get taken advantage of, and you might be stomped on, and that's a learning process for me. Is like I can be nice to everybody, right? But the second they kind of show their cards and they're stomp all over you, you gotta retract that, and you gotta know that person isn't gonna give me that energy back. So I need to not give them that nice energy, and not be rude to them, but you don't need to be like, as like, oh, I'll do this and this and help out. Like you gotta set your boundaries so you don't get stomped on
Took
with
me a
people.
very, very long time to get to get there too, because I am like, a very social person, really nice person. I want to help people, obviously. And yeah, there some people you need to watch out for in life, and some people you got to keep at a distance.
Yes, I entirely agree with that. You gotta, live and learn type of thing, and be
Hmm.
cautious, set your own boundaries. But once again, I mean, the way you nailed that of doing things that you love and putting time and effort into those passions is exactly what we encompass here at this podcast and everything. So I'll leave it, close it at that. But Amy, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. A 6-hour time difference is hard to figure out, but we did it. We figured it out. But thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our podcast conversation, and you're always welcome to come back on the episodes. So
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Like we laughed a lot. I like that was
we
funny.
did.
Like we was like laughing a lot. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. And I hope to meet you in person one day.
Yeah, I'll be coming over. I'm coming over to you. We'll do the
Do
opposite. I'll
it.
come to you. Yeah, we'll make it
Do it.
happen.
Do it. For
Tell
sure.
people where to follow you, all that stuff, yourself, podcast. Give them the
Yes.
deed.
So you can follow me on Instagram at MC Unicorn Official. That's all one word. You can follow Drop Bass Not Bombs at Drop Bass Not Bombs NL. You can follow Hardstyle Mag at Hardstyle Mag, and EDM House Network at EDM House Network, all spelled the regular way. Also, just want to plug one other thing. I actually have a second podcast that's on Patreon, exclusively on Patreon. Yeah, we didn't get to that, but it's called Ravers Revelations. And that's with my friend Elena Van Wyk. And she is a Dutch YouTuber and content creator. We read and react to your festival stories. So yeah, I think those are all the ways to contact me. The main ways. I mean, I'm also on TikTok now and Facebook, but those are the main platforms, main ways to get in contact with me.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for coming on once again. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.